Hey, Andrea. Great to see you.
Hi, Janelle.
Your voice is so not like a poker player. Like I can feel like there's an entire story just in the way you say hello.
So we're going to do something a little different this time. We're talking about transitions. And I'm going to read a piece to kick us off. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm super excited. Bravehearts, in case you didn't know, Andrea's an incredible writer and is working on all sorts of different pieces right now. And so she's going to start sharing more of them.
So it's called The Horrible Hallway. I've been here before. It's long and dark with a dozen closed doors. Some are locked. Some lead to all the experiences you used to love, but can't seem to love anymore. All of your old go-tos. Other doors don't have any knobs at all. They lead to personal growth and big love, and they are the reason you have abandoned the doors of your past. But they require intimacy with yourself, a definition of the real you, without the context of your husband and your daughter and your house and your town and your friends. In one past room are 10 screens playing television shows you desperately looked forward to. Ally McBeal and Handmaid's Tale and Lost and Wonder Years and Downton Abbey and Game of Thrones and so many more. Characters that made you feel brave and comfortable and included all at the same time. They now feel like a way to avoid the truth, the real work. Other rooms have jars of Nutella and cherry pie and those purple wrapped Milka bars available in England. All the sugar you used to crave. Those binges used to provide hours of bliss. Now, only minutes. In other rooms, Spotify plays songs by bands with names like Cigarettes After Sex and Audio Slave and Vancouver Sleep Clinic. Songs that once made you feel loved and sexy and whole and seen. Now they feel emptier, self-indulgent. In one room, everything is blue in honor of that F word, Facebook. Still in other rooms, there are parent parties raging. Happy hours littered with 6-year-olds and cheese bunny crumbs, and ragged parents trying to remember where they put down their red Solo cup of wine. Parties where you laughed and upheld your image of a mom who wore cowgirl hats and responded to texts immediately and liked to make friends with her daughter's teacher. Now, a lot of other people feel exhausting. Now you prefer one-on-one connections. In still other rooms, there are stacks of books you consider old friends. Books you used to love reading. Books that taught you about relationships and meaning and how to have a creative spirit, how to be a human. But reading doesn't interest you much anymore. Finally, there's another room that replicates the TJMaxx experience. Aisle after aisle of impulse purchases designed to fill the emptiness. Stuff like purple power strips, gray organizing baskets, and Moroccan-themed pillows, and sriracha-flavored lentil crackers. And you're in this hallway, and those past doors are already closed, and the new ones are not open yet. You don't have the key. Some of the doors don't even have knobs. And in this horrible hallway, I am forced to become self-aware. I cannot avoid myself any longer. So that's where I am now.
The horrible hallway.
Yeah, I like to name things. So there's the horrible hallway, which I just read about. Another word for it is the liminal, which is technically defined as on both sides of a boundary or a threshold, or, between rites of passage in life. And there's a song, which I think I mentioned once before by Noah Kahan called Season of the Sticks, which I, for some reason, was incredibly attracted to, started playing it over and over. It became my NBO, next big obsession, back in August. And I eventually looked up Season of the Sticks, and stick season is this time in Vermont when leaves have all fallen off the trees and the snow has not come yet. It is this in-between space that's kind of ugly.
Mud season.
Mud season.
For those of us in Colorado mountain towns.
That's right. Mud season. Totally. And then there's the caterpillar slime, right? Which we all know about and we've heard about so much. But growing up, you were told stories about the caterpillar and the butterfly. I was. And there wasn't much talk of this middle time, which is actually this huge time of decay and destruction. In fact, the cells are in fact completely disassembled and then put back together. And what that looks like is just a pile of green slime. So that's what I am right now, a pile of green slime. Yay. So it's nice to name it though, to embody it, to take ownership of it. And I've learned that the better I understand my transition, the more metaphors I can think of, the easier I can accept it. And the more I can sink into it.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing what's on your heart right now and the state of the green slime.
And I will say that here's the weird thing is that I like change. As a counterphobic 6, I'm super anxious about it, but I want new things. Meaning I'm talking about an Enneagram there. A counterphobic 6 is seeking new experiences, but pretty anxious about choosing them. And so I ask for it. I ask to walk through fire, even if I'm screaming a bunch of the time. And when I was raising my child, my daughter's school, Waldorf is incredibly good at transitions. So they set up milestones across various points of childhood. They honor the seasons really well. They have a lot of ritual, a lot of music. They use words like golden night and rose ceremony and winter spiral. They're incorporating nature into the transitions of childhood. And when I was raising my daughter, a lot of the parenting books said that the seasons represent this surefire predictability. Global warming aside, a power higher than ourselves, that would in fact always make way for like the tulips to come in the spring and the snow to come in the winter and the cicadas in the summer and the pumpkins in the fall. And I remember reading that and thinking, okay, I'm going to set things up for her so that she sees this predictability in the seasons. And then I realized one April, maybe 8 years ago, when it just would not stop snowing, as happens in Colorado, right? We're like, it's spring. No, it's not. It's spring. No, it's not. Like the branches all break off from the heavy snow. The tulips all get completely destroyed. And I was like, what the fuck? I need the seasons too. I needed spring to come. And I was just so really just uncomfortable that it wasn't coming. So turns out adults need those predictable seasons, just like children. So transitions are hard. What about you, Janelle? What transitions have been hard for you?
What I'm hearing, or what I'm feeling, I guess, is that there are transitions that I'm really looking forward to. Like an obvious one for me was like going to college. I remember being like a first semester senior, being like, oh my gosh, I'm so done. I'm so ready to go to college. And I was the child that I think like ran to school without looking back to wave goodbye to her mom and dad. I was like always ready for the next adventure. So the transition of going to college for me was one of adventure and excitement. And there were certainly hard parts in there, but the excitement overtook it. Conversely, at the end of college, that was harder for me. I was ready to be done with college, but then the idea of finding the first job, because it was like, oh, here's a job, but it was nebulous. Like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? All of these things. I had moved to Colorado by that point. But I remember like getting my first job, but then not getting the position that I had applied for and getting another position that didn't pay as well. And I can still remember like this sobbing, but I needed a job to be able to pay the bills. I needed insurance, and just feeling like the just despair in a way of like adulthood in that moment of like, oh, I feel like I don't have a choice in this, which wasn't true at all. I totally had choice, but it was this feeling of, but I need money and insurance. And so here's the job that I got. And so I'm going to say yes to it. And so I would say that first real job out of college in my early 20s was like a moment of transition and having to like really find it and then take it and know and being like, this isn't what I want. Like, the idea of like, oh, I'm going to find like the perfect job and my way in the world and all this stuff. And actually it was a, customer service job, and I was getting up at 6 a.m. or showing up shift work 6 a.m.
Right.
for a software company. I would say another big transition for me was when my mom passed away. I was 34, so 15 years ago now. But she was also sick for the 3 years prior. She had had breast cancer when I was 7, when I was a child, that she recovered from, but it went into remission for 23 years. And then it came back when I was 31, but it came back as metastasized bone cancer. And so there was that to me was, for me, it was like a liminal period of, I was living in Colorado. My mom was in New York. And so I was traveling back and forth to see her. And there's a part of me that feels like I didn't put my life on hold. I was definitely still living my life, but her death became part of my evolution. But it was not clear. Like, these are words I can say now. Mm-hmm. It was just, okay, my mom is sick, and that's the phase that I'm in. And then another big transition was when I left Soul, which was the lingerie store I had worked at for 15 years, and my best friends owned it. My entire life revolved around it. My community, my friends, I moved to Denver. This was like my main job that I had had my whole time living in Denver. And so when it was time for me to leave, the time had come, but because I wasn't happy there anymore, but then I didn't know what else to do. And I was like, in a liminal. I was like, oh, I'm not in a position where I can make a choice for my next step yet, because I'm not, I can use the word resourced. Like, I was burnt out. I was unhappy. I was confused. I was lost. And so, what's your next job? I knew enough that I couldn't make a decision about what I was going to do next, because everything was so intertwined, and I was what felt like drowning of like, I just have no idea who I am without this job. That was an eventful, but it took me almost a year to figure out my next steps after that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you said you were just not resourced, and you're like, I don't know what to do next.
Yes. And so I think a lot of people, in my opinion, about transitions is it's really uncomfortable to not know the answer, not know what to do next, not know like what our next step is. And so we force it.
And make a poor decision, you mean?
Ultimately, I think we can only make a poor decision if we're in confusion, or like, for example, for me, like during that time, I remember I was like, there's a period of time where you're not sleeping because you're so confused. And there's another part of it where you're just like, all I want to do is sleep. But either way, I'm not resourced. And so there's like that piece. So it's for making a decision from the place of like confusion of like what I'm going to do next for my next chapter of my life. I just knew enough that I wasn't in a place to make the decision. And I allowed myself the spaciousness to wait. Privileged position to be in, where I had enough savings, where I didn't have to like go straight into, I was able to Airbnb and rent out my house, and I did some traveling.
This is the time when you like lived in your basement.
Lived in my basement, rented out my house. Yeah. So I had options that allowed me not to have to make a decision about work until I came back to myself.
I think what I'm hearing is an important point, is that you were able to wait until you could make a good decision that was right for you at the time. So I think that is what I'm running into now, is just, I'm not resourced to make that decision, or I can't wait. I feel like I can't wait, but then I feel like I should wait.
Right. And you being that resource, right? I'm thinking for you is an emotional state.
Yeah, it's both. I mean, like, I'm fine financially, but not great. Like, and so there is that too.
Yes. But it's both are there. It's but what I was going to say, the financial piece is driving the urgency.
Right.
But it's the emotional state that has you feel like flat and down and sad.
An inability to make a decision, inability to move toward joy. Yes. So yeah, multiple things going on. So yeah, but what I hear from even all three of those is that they came somewhat unexpectedly, and you had to face them, and you're like, whoa, I have to accept this as a part of growing up, as a part of evolving.
It's a part of being human, it's a part of life, like a first job, a parent passing, changing a career. Like none of these are unique, right? Like, I wasn't special in any of this stuff. It was just my flavor.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think it was the most important thing that it taught you in those transitions?
I actually think each transition has lessons in it. I don't know that I think there were different lessons across each of the transitions. What it taught me was to wait.
Yeah, to have patience with the process and with the transition. Yeah.
Right. And specifically, I'll speak to this about my mom. She passed away. I was 34. I spent 6 weeks after with my dad in New York. And when I came back home, I was like disoriented, grieving. And let me be clear, my mom was really sick. She'd already beat cancer once. And the first emotion that our family felt was relief because my mom was so sick when she passed. So in all of these ways, like this wasn't a sudden passing. This was a natural progression of a mother dying before her child, like which feels appropriate. So in all these ways, it was actually, there was a lot of grace. There was a lot of love. She was able to die at home. And so in this way, what I allowed myself was just the honor, like grief is an emotion to deeply honor and respect when we have to feel it, so that and to let it run its course, not to rush through it. It was so appropriate to grieve my mom's passing. And there was also a part of me that realized that allowing the grief, the depths of the grief mirrored the depths of the love. And so I allowed myself to sleep and not see friends and get massages and just not do a lot, because there was also an honoring in the sadness and the depression and the grief and all of that. But like on a funnier note, I remember coming back and being like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. When I woke up, I was like, I feel like I'm going to organize something. And I remember coming, and I said that to my roommate at the time. And I remember coming home and she was like, oh, okay. It's the pantry. The pantry is what you decided to organize. And I had taken everything out of the pantry and was like starting to put it back according to like beans color and like all the different things. And there was this recognition that I was like, oh, I can control this. I want something to be orderly and to make sense, and allowed myself like that, the pleasure of that kind of expression. Instead of judging myself or thinking I should be doing something different or I should be productive, it was like, oh no, I'm just going to like organize a pantry so I can feel like I have accomplished something. And it has a start, it has a stop. And there was something about that.
Yeah. So I think I can relate to, so you wanted something to control, and you also were giving yourself grace and allowing and being okay with not doing much, it sounds like. And this is something that I'm going through right now that my friend Carrie L mentioned to me. She's like, I said, really, I'm not as capable. I'm not as functional. And she's like, well, how many hours do you think you can put in a day? And like, what are your best hours? And I'm like, okay, 10 to 2. And she's like, okay, so you only have to do half days. What if you just had to do half days? So I've reclaimed those hours as like my best hours and really given myself that the morning, just knowing that like, I'm not going to get anything done before 9:30 or 10. And that's a long time. Like I wake up at 6, but I really need just longer to get going. I need to mope around for a while. And it just takes me longer to get in the shower and longer to I have 2 coffees instead of 1. I have found so bizarre, that I play Wordle. And that is something I look forward to in the morning. You just heard me say, I really don't look forward to anything. And I'm not joking. That's the top 2 things. It's something that it's just this nice distraction that I do by myself on the porch with my phone. I'm sleeping more. But one of the things I realized is that my anxiety about not getting enough done and not doing my work and not being a good enough this or good enough that was really also robbing me of the full acceptance of the grief and the transition and the mourning and the suffering. And so I need to go through that discomfort and suffering. And I was just like, oh, I'm not getting enough done. Oh my God, I'm a failure. And that really was important to kind of allow myself that time so that I could put enough energy toward the grief in the morning and the transition.
Is that something you figured out in the middle of this, like in this middle of the transition that you're in right now?
Yes.
How would you describe the transition you're in right now?
I'm in a period of deconstruction or destruction. There's a lot of my communities, relationships, livelihood, work, things that I used to depend on that are just falling away or going away or disintegrating, or just dynamics are changing. And so I have a lot of spaciousness. And then I'm also just in a low level depression from a breakup. And so a lot of things aren't appealing to me. I don't want to do things. I walk around. I'm like, I'm not sure what to do with myself. So I just have a lot of change at one time. And it's overwhelming because I'm supposed to be resourced. I'm trying to figure out how to be resourced amidst this difficult time. Mm-hmm. And like you said, sometimes you can't, you have to wait. I have to have patience through this transition. And
what I'm also hearing, what I was saying is that like, okay, so like my mom passed away. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 weeks and then I need to be over it. Or I need to be done with, like the grieving in 2 months. Like I just didn't do that. Do you think you have an expectation on like how long you're supposed to allow yourself to grieve?
Well, that's the trouble. Like I so want to have some kind of structure around it. Because for God's sake, what are you laughing at me about?
I'm laughing at my dear friend who wants structure for everything, including one of like life's biggest emotions.
Yes, totally. I mean, okay, just give me some kind of certainty, like some kind of structure.
It will end.
It will end. That's all you have for me. It will end. Right. In 2 years or 2 months or 2 days. Like, yeah, I think that's hard, not knowing the end. I'm working with that. But yeah, I haven't given myself I know I can't give myself a particular time. And I'll tell you though, not that I'm blaming pop culture or society, but
there's plenty to blame there.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go ahead and blame. Like I remember growing up, I know I've said this on the podcast before, like growing up in a movie, in a TV show, transitions, they're not shown. In one scene, they're moving into the house with all the boxes. And in the next scene, all of the art is all over the walls and all the furniture is in. And there has been no stress trying to get that damn chair through the 1905 door that you have now in this bungalow. There is no stress about that. There are no cords showing behind the TV. There are no setups for what is plugged into what. There's no choosing of rooms. They just skip all that shit because it's messy, because it's not appealing. And so I really feel like that shaped like how I thought life was supposed to be. I really do. It's a little bit frightening, but I know that I just, and it's evident because moving days notoriously for me have been like the worst day of my life. Like, I mean, I haven't moved now in 13 years. And so it's been a long time, but oh my gosh, moving day, everything is in chaos. Everything's disorganized. Are things going to get lost? Are things going to get broken? So much anxiety for me. Just don't like that transition at all. And the first time I was made aware of transitions was in my yoga training, which is so weird because I would not think about that as a place to learn about transitions. But, they were like, can you pay tribute to the transition between down dog and plank? Instead of just jumping from down dog to plank, because you're just, hopping from one to another. Because if we can do it slowly, fluidly, consciously, then we consider our poses less to-do items and more experience items, right? Something to experience, a place to be, not something to do. So these types of transitions between home and college, between college and life, between coupledom and motherhood, those were big transitions. And I wanted them to be over like that. I just thought it would be a hop from one rock to another. Mm-hmm. When in reality, you're actually in the air for a long time.
Right.
You're suspended in the air.
It's like the idea of, like the wedding is just one day, but the planning of the wedding could be as long as you want it to be.
So, I mean, that's when I first learned about transitions. I was like, oh, I should be paying more. And this was just a seed planted, 12 years ago. And then I started realizing, oh, I need to pay more attention to transitions. So that was helpful, but it is just this incredible lack of certainty, incredible discomfort. I'm so tired of telling myself that discomfort leads to growth. Fuck you. I don't care about growing anymore. I'll just stay right where I am. Like, I literally say it these days and I feel like I just roll my eyes when I say it. I'm like, yeah, I know. Discomfort leads to growth. So tell me, I think you also had some like little transitions you want to talk about too. Like not just the big life moments, but.
Right. I actually call these margins.
Good word. Yeah.
I realized that I needed margins around my experiences. So it used to be when I was working, if I would go on vacation, wherever I was going, I would take like the last flight back, get home, midnight Sunday night, so that I'm at work, Monday morning. I would like whatever hours, days, minutes I had away from my job was going to be my vacation. Then eventually there was a moment where I was like, that is actually stressful and not really serving me. And I should come home a day early so that I can transition and like do my laundry before my work week starts or whatever. And I've done a couple of longer trips in my life, meaning I had quit my job and had traveled for 4 to 6 months. And it was this idea that, I'm going from 2 weeks in this country and then 2 weeks in the next country. And during that time, what I realized is like, I just like going from like India to Uganda is a big shift, right? And it's like, actually I need to digest. I was just spent 2 months in India. I need to digest that experience. So then I went to Malaysia to visit friends and literally stayed on their couch for a week in Kuala Lumpur. And yes, I was in a new city, but I was like, I'm not here to see the city. I'm actually here to digest India. So that was one of my margins. Even in the midst of what could be considered this like big travel adventure, was I needed downtime to integrate the experiences that I had to transition ultimately from one portion of my trip to the next portion of my trip. For me, travel has been one of the ways that I've learned a lot of life lessons. And so it was because of that travel that I was like, I need to apply that to life at home as well, which is that, instead of going from like back-to-back events, that I actually need more time. And this could be in a given day, in a given month. But like my schedule, I used to like jam pack my schedule. And after that journey, I was like, actually, nope, I'm going to take, this is either downtime, like a down couple of hours or a down day. And was really aware that that breathing room helped me resource.
Yeah. So you're being intentional about your transitions, what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm. Actually planning them, intentionally planning a transition, knowing that I'm going to get more out of the thing I just did and then be better available for the thing I'm about to do.
It's just like, really, this is about scheduling downtime. And this is something that I definitely didn't do for many, many years. I just didn't see the need, right? Mm-hmm. And then we've talked so many times about how we like to spend time alone. It's like, I know I need some time alone to digest. And part of this I've learned from my daughter, and that she really needs her alone time, takes her alone time, comes home from school, does not want to talk, needs to go into her room and draw, doesn't want to talk to me, doesn't want to talk to anyone. She just wants to be alone for a while. And what that does, though, originally when I started doing that, was it tugs against the productivity badge. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, I could get more done if I could just squeeze in this load of laundry and then do the dishes and then because there's so much needs to be done. And then the real mind fuck is when you question, is productivity the right measurement? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's not, right? It's really not, but it just feels so good because that's, really what we've been taught. So I think the difference for me now, if there's any difference, there's still a lot of suffering. And this is one of the biggest transitions I've been through in a long time, for sure, probably in over 5 years, is The only thing I can identify, okay, there's a few things I can identify as different. One, that I'm more self-aware. And I'm like, oh, this is a transition. I have to go through it. I'm a little less like, I want to get to the other side, but I just know intrinsically that I'm just going to have to wait. And it's not going to come right away. And it's going to come organically when it wants to be born. I do really struggle with I need to take action. And no, but I don't feel like taking action. But I do know I need to wait. The second is that I have definitely a deeper inherent trust in everything eventually working out, even if I don't have it every day or I forget about it sometimes. Whereas I think before, even a few years ago, I was like, we are all fucking gonna die.
Which is still true. But you've let go a little bit.
Yeah. I'm really just riffing on like, we're all gonna die. Like just really being like, we're all going to hell in a handbasket. It's gonna be a disaster. And I'm like, no, I know it's gonna work out somehow. But I have varying levels of that faith from day to day. But there is more trust. No doubt about it.
Something that I recognize is that, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but like if you could have one superpower, what would it be? Yeah. And so mine is, I'm going to say teleportation. People who are like really into comics and videos, like if my stepson was here, I think it's a different word. I've always said teleportation, but he's like, no, I think it's like, tell us something else. I don't remember. Astral travel, maybe. I don't know. But in any case, that thing where you go from here to across the world instantaneously. That's the superpower that I have always said that I wanted. And there is a part of me that still absolutely wants it. And yet, what I also know is that the 20-hour plane ride from here to South Africa is an incredibly beautiful purgatory to be in that I love and relish as well. So there's this interesting thing about, the plane ride serves as this transition from one place to the other. And as much as I want the instantaneous switch, that I actually get a lot out of the really long, painful plane ride.
Yeah, we are exactly so the same, right? Because like, you want to beam yourself.
Yeah, I would never want to do that because I fucking love going in the plane and I love a road trip. And like, I love the travel. And so it's not a bad metaphor for me to think about right now as like, okay, this is part of my road trip, right? I'm traveling. I am not getting there yet. I might not be there for days, weeks, or months.
Right.
But I think it is interesting because
Are we there yet, Papa Smurf?
Yeah. Oh my God. Did not expect you to say that. Oh my gosh, that was for you, Jeff. I have a friend who would always play the Smurfs theme song when we were going out in college. Yeah, it's just, we need that time. And especially when I would go back to the Midwest and drive back, I remember writing an essay about it right before I was pregnant with my daughter and being like, no, I need 12 hours to prepare myself for the different culture, I'm in a different region. I'm going to see my parents. I'm in my small town. Like, I need that slow adjustment. And you need the same thing if you're going to South Africa from Denver. You're going into a completely different culture, different time zone, a different landscape. And it's important to honor that transition. So now I just have to honor the transition right now. But I'm not going anywhere.
What if you are?
I am. Yes, I am not going anywhere physical, but I guess I am going somewhere.
All right. I'm proud of you. I know you're in it. And we just did it. You just did something that you're like, I'm like
doing this.
Anything. And you did it. And just like being with you today is, I know there's something I can do for you. Like I can brainstorm. I can do this. And like, I can say a few words, and ultimately I have to sit in the discomfort of witnessing my dear friend being in a really hard time. Yeah. And we love you like you are right now in whatever emotion is present and whatever flatness feels like it's there.
Yeah. And thank you for listening to me say the same things over and over again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because I've been there too. Like, this is just a life experience. This isn't like anything is wrong with you. This is like, to me, much like when I said grieving my mom's loss, like it was just like so appropriate. Like I look at you, I'm like, seems really appropriate. You're grieving a deep, profoundly impactful relationship. And your career and your child turning 13 and all of these things. I mean, like these are big, any one are big things.
Yeah, that's true. We wish you peaceful, grace-giving transitions.
Bye.
Do you need permission to be human? You got it. Listen, subscribe, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about us at permissiontobehuman.live.